Hi, welcome to the Banshees podcast. Before we begin, I'd just like to point out that you may hear some tinkering bells, some meows here and there, and that is because Yadira owns 2 cats, and they just happen to be very active and very affectionate this episode. Without further ado, let's begin the episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hey, Yadira, I have a question for you.
What's up?
So, what would you do if I brought a Ouija board to your house? Like, I didn't tell you, I just brought it with me.
Well, one, I'd tell you that, where did you get this? I really hope you didn't spend any money on this nonsense. And 2, get this shit out of my house. My mom will kick me out.
Welcome. If you're here because you heard our screams, then according to legend, you may or may not die soon. Time will tell.
Wait, you didn't bring a Ouija board, did you?
No, I didn't.
Oh, thank God. Sorry, I already interrupted you at the beginning. Like, you made a look. You had an expression that said, "Oh no, she doesn't need to know about it." Like, what?
Yeah, that was the whole point. I wanted to freak you out. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, so if you are here, there's a chance that we may read your name in the obituary. We thank you for being here. My name is Christina. I'm here with my co-host Yadira, and this is a podcast about all things horror.
Yeah. And the ultimate horror is that you will never be able to afford a house on your own.
Wow, that's some realistic horror right there.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is going to be a Why Is It Scary? We haven't done that one for a while.
I know, and we just started this.
I know. The last Why Is It Scary was about analog horror, and you did the entire script for that one. And it was really good. It's honestly, I looked at our analytics, it's still our most popular episode. So after this one, go check that one out. Remember to like and subscribe and rate our podcast and do all that stuff.
And also be sure to keep an eye out for anything from Kane Pixels, because he will be a movie director very soon.
Yes. So without further ado, let's get comfortable, because this is going to be a bit of a long one, and let's discuss the ever mysterious and ever so spooky Ouija board. For those that are unfamiliar, a Ouija board is a flat board with the letters A through Z written in 2 semicircles above the numbers 0 through 9. And there are words on the Ouija board as well. The words yes and no are written in the upper corners of the Ouija board, and at the bottom of the board, you'll see the word goodbye.
Well, what about hello?
I think some of them do have hello written on the board, but for the ones that I saw on Google Images, most of the different ones just have goodbye.
Well, that's rude.
I know. Like, you don't say hi to people. You don't greet others.
The ghosts are rude if they're using this.
They say that if you use the Ouija board, you have to be very respectful, and you're supposed to say hello to the spirits.
Well, I mean, yeah, but like the board isn't the board for them to say words? There's no hello. The ghosts are automatically rude now.
I guess. I mean, it's up to them whether they say hello back or not. Like,
it's rude. They're just being rude. Ghosts are rude. Everybody, this is what I've taken from this episode. Ghosts are rude.
Ouija boards are accompanied usually with a device that's teardrop shaped. It's called a planchette, and 2 or more people will place their hands on the planchette and navigate the board during its session.
What do you mean one person will navigate it and to scare the shit out of the other? That's what I would do.
If a planchette isn't available these days, people definitely will use a glass instead.
So we can do shots.
Yeah, sure. Why not? From what I can tell, there are no legal age restrictions on the Ouija board. So for all ages, everyone.
Actually, most Ouija boards I've seen usually have an 8 and up.
Really?
Yeah, so you can't be home alone, but you can summon demons alone by the age of 8. So
wonderful. Today, though, the Ouija board is officially owned by Hasbro. But the thing is, you can buy Ouija boards from a variety of sites. They vary in price. I think I saw one for $6.99 and another that was $43 USD. But the one on Amazon from Hasbro is $21.99 USD.
That's a fair price. Better than this one that I saw on Etsy. It was bright pink, cotton candy, kawaii themed, and there was a very adorable rendition of Baphomet and Satan on it.
Interesting.
They look very cute.
Ouija boards have been around for approximately 133 years. Yeah, they got invented in like 1890, like around that time. So
they came after the revolution.
Yeah. Actually, that's a big part into why it exists. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We're getting ahead of ourselves. Okay. And interesting fact, because as I was researching, I figured this out. There's a glow-in-the-dark Ouija board now. So if you want one, you can buy one.
I do not.
You like things that glow in the dark, though.
I do, but I don't want that in my house. My mom will kick me out.
Okay.
I was raised Catholic.
Fair. Okay, getting back on topic. So, as we know, Ouija boards have been featured in a variety of movies and TV shows. Actually, let's name off a few. Paranormal Activity.
The Exorcist, my favorite.
And Veronica, I believe.
Yes, yeah. And also the hit, when did it come out? 2013 movie, Ouija.
Yes.
That movie was not a hit, by the way. I'm joking. Like that movie.
Wow.
Throwing smear horns.
Today, Ouija boards are generally considered to be associated with demonic forces, a tool for the devil by churches.
Or if you're Hot Topic, probably like something that you can make into a tin of mints.
Yeah.
For $10.
But you know, the stigma around Ouija boards, it's so strong and prevalent that even skeptics will outright refuse to be anywhere near a Ouija board.
That's totally not me.
Are you sure?
No. It's totally not who I am. It's not like I was traumatized by The Exorcist.
So, it's been around for a long time, but where did it come from? Is it truly a tool that can summon demonic forces? How and why did it become so scary? That's what we're going to be learning today.
White people lying.
Well, yes.
Oh, shit, I was right.
Technically, you're not wrong.
Shit, I'm smart.
You're a smart noodle.
I'm a good noodle. I'm a smart cookie.
Same thing.
Different thing. Two different foods.
So, let's see. Where did the Ouija board start? Well, according to Robert Murch, a Ouija board historian, yes, that's a thing.
Wait, his name is Murch?
What was that?
That was the lantern turning off. We're using my lantern that doubles as a speaker, and it turned off by itself because it does that when it idles for too long.
Ah.
Yeah, my bad.
But anyway, yes, his name is Robert Murch.
So if he were to open up a store, it would be the Murch shop. Continue.
Okay. Robert Murch said that the Ouija board is actually a product of America's obsession with spiritualism in the 19th century.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and ever since then, it's become an icon, I guess, or like a staple in American pop culture.
Yeah.
Right. And part of the reason that we still have it and why it's still relevant today is because it was further fueled by times of hardship and uncertainty in American history, along with being depicted multiple times in the American media.
So like when we were bored as Americans, we talked to dead people?
Yeah.
Very American.
Very American.
So that Sixth Sense movie was the most patriotic piece of cinema.
Sure.
Good job, M. Night Shyamalan. You're a patriot.
So to really unpack this, it's only right that we briefly discuss spiritualism, right? So what is spiritualism and how did it lead to the creation of the Ouija board?
You know, that's a loaded question.
Yeah, and I did all the research for it, so I'm about to tell it all to you.
I know none of this already. She told me not to.
She was banned.
I was banned.
She's gonna do what Yadira does.
Be loud. And also ask for an icy, maybe.
Yeah. Anyway, let's get into this. So, spiritualism. To be clear, spiritualism is not the same as religion, okay? Religion is more of an organized set of beliefs and practices, and spirituality is a lot more personal and an individual experience and more about finding your purpose in life.
Yeah, you know, that thing that Ezra Miller keeps saying he's doing.
Right. Damn, the shade.
I will not be going to go see The Flash.
So here's the thing. You can be religious and spiritual and not religious, or, you know, religious and not spiritual at all. Go off. Do what you want. Google Dictionary actually provides us with 2 definitions of spiritualism. The first is a system of belief or religious practice based on supposed communication with the spirits of the dead, especially through a medium. The second definition is the doctrine that spirits exist distinct from matter, or that spirit is the only reality.
You know, I don't believe in medium.
I know.
They make me very angry.
You want to elaborate on that?
If you let me rant about how much I hate psychics and mediums right now, this episode's going to be taken over by how much I hate psychics and mediums right now.
Okay, we're not going to get into it.
I have a lot of strong feelings, especially with the past 2 years of what mediums have been doing on TikTok. So-called mediums, I call them charlatans. You're all charlatans. All of you.
Some strong words.
Sorry, it's just like if you're charging people or you're trying to get people arrested for things they didn't do, and there's like a guy who's been arrested for you are not a medium. You're wrong. Own up to the fact that you made a mistake. Stop being a coward. Sorry.
It's
Continue
okay
with the episode.
Okay.
I just really don't like them.
It's okay. Okay. So here's the thing. Spiritualism had always been around in America. And that's because it kind of started in Europe, and Europeans eventually moved to the US, the New World.
Mm-hmm. Another import of British people and spiritualism.
Yeah, but it really hit its peak. It became a whole movement known as the modern spiritualist movement. So it's this movement that really fueled the creation of the Ouija board. And this particular movement was actually based off several philosophies that was considered revolutionary at the time.
Wait, philosophy and Ouija boards.
Yeah.
That's just a weird combo. Continue.
Let's get into these philosophies. There's really 3.
Right.
Okay. So the first one is known as mesmerism, after Franz Anton Mesmer, an Australian healer during the 18th century. Mesmer proposed that everything in the universe, including the human body, was controlled or governed by a magnetic fluid that, when imbalanced, causes illness.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to get over the name Mesmer. He named it after himself.
He did. So he would, get this, so he would wave his hands over patients, right, and induce them into a mesmerized hypnotic state. I'm sorry. Anyway, this hypnotic state would allow Mesmer to manipulate the magnetic fluids in the body and restore health. Now, there were people who really took on Mesmer's ideas and practices, and those people were called mesmerists. Are you okay?
Sorry, it was just so funny. I have to laugh.
I'm
not laughing. I'm sorry, I can't.
So these mesmerists actually grew in popularity. They became a really popular attraction, and they received a lot of paying customers who would come to see them. And there were actually some people who claimed that they saw spirits from a different dimension when they were induced into this hypnotic trance. And I don't know for sure, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that to some extent, this concept may be one of the things behind that one internet game on TikTok that was going around. Remember I believe it was called Three Kings?
That's been going on since way before TikTok. Like early days of Reddit. Like there's still a whole Reddit thread dedicated to the Three Kings.
I didn't have internet till I was like 13.
Neither did I, but I was probably older than you.
Yeah, and also I was supervised. Give me some grace here.
True, I was completely unsupervised. Hashtag unsupervised kids for the win.
Yeah, helicopter parents, you've kind of left your kids at a slight disadvantage here.
Heli life.
Moving on, because that wasn't the only philosophy.
Is there more?
So there was the philosophy of Emanuel Swedenborg, an 18th century philosopher and mystic who made
Swedenborg. And he's Swedish?
Yeah. Because why wouldn't he be?
Swedenborg sounds like such a fake name. Hey, what's your name, man from probably Sweden? Swedenborg. Sorry. I'm just ripping on these poor dead philosophers' names. I'm so sorry. If any of you have these names, I'm so sorry. Continue.
Anyway, he made the claim that the afterlife actually consisted of 3 levels of heaven and 3 levels of hell, with this intermediary level that was very similar to Earth, right? And he also said that if in life you were more about self-love and greed, then ultimately you would kind of rear your path towards more of the levels of hell. Whereas if you were very generous and about loving others, then you would probably end up in some level of heaven.
There's levels to heaven now.
Yeah.
I thought that was only hell, but then again, Dante's Inferno is just fan fiction.
So Swedenborg,
Swedenborg sounds like such a fake name. I'm sorry to anyone who's proud of the name, having the name Swedenborg, but your name sounds really made up.
Okay, but here's the thing. So with this philosopher, I can actually see why his ideas were revolutionary, whereas like with Mesmer, I couldn't really see it. It just sounded kind of silly to me. But with Swedenborg, I kind of get it. Because in religion, and I've seen this trend in general, so I'm not calling out any particular religion, the god or the gods ultimately decide where one goes in the afterlife, if there is an afterlife in the religion, right? Right. But with this philosophy, right, this school of thought, you kind of get a level of agency, right? You can kind of decide where you go. And I think that's why it was so popular. Because think about the time that this was happening. This is during a time where there was a lot of uncertainty.
Right. Because, you know, everybody was worried about the end of the world, especially certain religions that kept changing the date. Figure out your doomsday, everyone. Before you go out there and tell me there's a doomsday, because I have my bags packed.
She is prepared.
I am ready for the rapture, or the reverse of it, whatever, you know.
She's ready for Ragnarok. So there are other philosophies, so let's move on. Ragnarok can wait.
Usually does.
Yeah, it usually does.
As it always does.
We have one more philosophy to go over.
Bo Burnham?
No.
Oh.
It's actually Andrew Jackson Davis.
Oh, what a boring name.
I know, right?
The first 2 had cool names. Go change your name, Andrew Jackson Davis. Jeez.
He was a 19th century American seer, so clearly he came like much more later, right? Because we're in the 19th century now.
Right.
And he was known as John the Baptist of modern spiritualism.
That is a long-ass title.
Well, it's just a title people gave him. But his philosophy actually combined that of Mesmer and Swedenborg. And he claimed that he saw and communicated with Swedenborg's spirit during a mesmeric trance, and predicted the rise of spiritualism, saying, "All the world will hail with delight the ushering in of that era when the interiors of men will be open and the spiritual communication will be established." So Davis thought that his prediction actually came true in 1848 because there was the rise of the Fox sisters.
You know, I can say a bunch of fancy glittery words and it'll come true. The man with all the money will be the man who buys the world. Boom, done. My prediction came true like 10 minutes ago. Bang.
With Jeff Bezos.
I was thinking, whatever, it doesn't matter who I thought.
Yeah, anyway. So the Fox sisters actually channeled spirits for the first time in their bedroom inside their Hydesville, New York home, which is why Andrew Jackson Davis here thought that his prediction came true. Okay. Oh, and with the mention of the Fox sisters, we're actually brought to the very, very beginning of the modern spiritualist movement. The thing that I said that Murch said created the Ouija board.
It was rung in by 2 foxy ladies.
Real quick, who were the sisters? The Fox sisters, Kate and Maggie, are the major reasons why the Ouija board is a thing. You see, they were the people that launched the spiritualist movement.
Wait a minute, I know about these girls. They came out, and one of them came out and said we were lying.
Yeah, that was later in 1888.
Like, apparently they're super flexible and they can pop their joints?
Yeah.
Dude, how do you do that on command? That's all I would have been asking them.
I really don't know. But, like, without them, we wouldn't have this movement.
Oh,
right?
gosh, so it's their fault.
Yeah, and guess what? They didn't even want any part of the movement. They didn't realize they contributed to it. It was just something that happened because of their actions. Yeah, and they're the reasons, actually, why we have people who claim to be psychics and mediums today.
So it's their fault!
Okay, relax.
Sorry, I hate these people.
The way the actual story goes is that one night they told their parents and a neighbor that every night around bedtime they would hear knocks on their walls and furniture. And these knocks were from the spirits of the dead, and they could actually communicate with these spirits through the knocks. They would verbally ask the spirits questions, and the spirits would respond back through the knocks. So that's how it went.
These techniques are still used today by psychics everywhere, and if you watch the second Ouija movie, they display those exact techniques.
Yeah. So as Yadira mentioned, they did admit to this later, but yeah, they were just pulling on their joints. Well, not pulling on their joints, but they were cracking their joints without really moving, producing these knock-like sounds.
And I think an apple on a string was involved at some
Yes,
point?
it was. In 1888, one of the sisters went up on stage and said they were doing these little tricks to create these noises. And one of the tricks they used was the apple on the string that they would just allow to like fall on furniture and floors.
See, this is one of those weird facts that I just knew.
But funny thing is, she actually retracted that confession that she made like soon after, because that was her only way of making money.
The audacity of this bitch.
They performed this trick when they were 11 and 14 years old. So this happened when they were really, really young. And the news spread from that one neighbor to the entire neighborhood. People were nosy back then. So all of a sudden, the entire neighborhood was kind of coming back to their house.
Some things just never change.
So they ended up moving eventually, and they moved in with their older sister in Rochester, New York.
Rochester.
Is that how it's pronounced?
Yes, Rochester.
I didn't look up any of the pronunciations to anything that I wrote here.
Major city.
I've never heard of it up until this point.
What? I'm sorry. Oh my gosh, hi. She's laughing with me. The cat is laughing at her.
Yeah, laugh it up.
Sorry. It's Rochester, New York.
Well, whatever. They moved in with their sister over there, okay? And their sister was like, oh, this is a business opportunity.
So it's her fault. You need someone to blame directly.
Yeah, so their sister would make them perform this trick for a bunch of people all across America. So as a result, spiritualism reached millions of Americans, whether they actually believed that what the sisters were doing was real or not.
This is so cute. I have two cats. One of them is being really affectionate and the other one is in trouble.
So their lives were honestly not that great, but if you want to know more about them, I will leave some links in the description so that you can check it out on your own. Now, spiritualism really worked for Americans. Most people did not make it past the age of 50 back then.
Common.
Men were dying in civil war, women were dying in childbirth, and many children just simply didn't make it to adulthood.
Damn, that sucks.
Disease and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Their parents had one job.
Well, they
Keep them
back
alive.
then, if they could make it past 5, that was amazing. Like, it was a big deal if they could make it past 5.
Jesus.
Because of this level of hardship that they were facing, Americans really wanted something more to believe in during a time where death was prevalent and life was uncertain and difficult. And the idea of being able to communicate with the spirit of loved ones who had died was really appealing for them.
To some. Some people just never want to speak to their parents again.
I'm sure that was true back then too. But as spiritualism grew, so did the frustration around having to wait for messages from the spirits of the dead, right? Like waiting for spirits to spell out words through knocks was just taking forever.
Ah.
Yeah, and by this time, they had telegraphs. So they were able to communicate fairly quickly with people on the other side of the world. So why couldn't they communicate with the spirits of the dead like that?
So they made a dead people telegram machine.
Yeah, something like that. So that niche of wanting to more efficiently, more quickly communicate with spirits of the dead ended up being filled by Charles Kennard, who created the company that would go on to manufacture the Ouija boards as we know it today.
Charles Kennard.
Kennard, yes. Kennard was a businessman, and he had moved to Eastern Shore, Maryland, to start his fertilizer business in the late 1880s. And it was successful at first, but eventually things just didn't work out.
He was literally selling shit at some point.
Yes. Anyway, when his fertilizer business went under, he ended up working for E.C. Reich, who owned the office next door to his. And he originally worked for him as a furniture maker, but he eventually transitioned to being a coffin maker, and then he became an undertaker.
That is a path.
So while he was working for Reich, the Associated Press released a report about a talking board that was showing up at Ohio spiritualist camps. And
does it say like knock knock joke?
I
like,
don't.
Knock knock, who's there? Hey, that's my face.
I don't know.
I would be impressed if that was the case, but it doesn't sound like it.
Yeah, it probably wasn't.
That's boring.
Like, Reich and Kennard saw this report, and they saw an opportunity. They began collaborating and making their own version of this talking board. Then, in 1890, Kennard moves to Baltimore, Maryland, where he starts up his fertilizer business again, because second time's the charm, right?
No.
While he's selling fertilizer, he's actually pitching the talking board to investors. And he eventually gets 4 investors. He gets Elijah Bond, a patent attorney, Cole Washington Bowie, a surveyor, and the Fold brothers, William and Isaac. Okay?
The Fold brothers.
Yeah.
They're like the Blues Brothers, except they work on sheep.
Yeah, so he gets them to incorporate in the business, and the Kennard Novelty Company becomes incorporated on October 30th, 1890. And they began to manufacture these talking boards. Now, they didn't have a name for their product by this time. Many people think that the Ouija board name comes from this French word oui for yes, and the German word ja.
Which is also yes, so the yes board.
Yeah. So others believe that the board named itself, and this latter story is actually more so true. Like, this is what happened in actuality, like technically.
This is the most Baltimore turn of events that I've ever heard, to be honest.
Yeah.
This is a very Baltimore thing. Also, I'm saying Baltimore incorrectly so that the rest of you people can understand us. Unfortunately, people don't understand when you say Baltimore.
Well, anyway, so Elijah Bond, one of the investors, has a sister-in-law named Helen Peters, who he claimed was a very strong medium. And he wanted her help to guide a seance around the board and ask the board what it wants to be called. And that's what they did, right? So they sat around the board, and the board spelled out Ouija, O-U-I-J-A. And they asked the board what it meant, and the board just responded with good luck. Sounds pretty spooky, right?
It sounds pretty made up.
I mean, yeah.
I will be absolutely disrespectful this episode.
So as it turns out, you're right, actually, because Helen Peters, who was leading the seance, was wearing a locket that said Ouija on it. And the locket had a picture of a woman inside. And historians believe that this woman was actually Ouija, and Ouija was just a misspelling of that name. You see, Ouija was actually a women's rights activist that Helen Peters was known to admire. So I think her intent was to name the board after the woman she admired.
I'm really glad her name is spelled wrong, because I'm sure she would be outraged.
Obviously, the group had to patent the Ouija board. After all, if they couldn't patent it, then other businesses could do the exact same thing.
And sell a bunch like they do now.
Yeah, exactly. But to get a patent, they have to prove that the Ouija board works.
Oh, that's unfortunate. I'm sure they tried really hard. Oh, that's so sad.
So the story is that the chief patent officer said that if the board could spell out his name correctly, and by the way, none of these investors were supposed to know this chief officer's name. So if the board could spell out the name correctly, then he would approve the patent application.
Was his name John?
I would think it was something really common like that.
I'd be mad if it was gone.
Yeah. So Elijah Bond goes to the office with the Ouija board and his sister-in-law, and they sit with the chief patent officer around the board and hold a seance. And the board spells out the chief patent officer's name correctly. And shaken by the event, the chief patent officer approves their patent application.
I'm calling bullshit.
I feel like
I'm positive they bribed him.
Well, here's the thing. It's entirely possible that Elijah Bond, who was a patent attorney, probably already knew the chief patent officer's name. I mean, he works in the business.
I guess that does save you money on bribes.
But the fact is, we don't know for sure. And because we don't know for certain, I like to believe what you believe, in the sense that the chief patent officer probably had a really common name, like Tom or something.
Yeah. My two other theories are the other guy already knew his name and just totally forgot the other guy because he probably had one of those forgettable faces. Or they bribed him and they lied about the story. All of them.
Yeah, it's a possibility. It's
America,
a hypothesis.
Land of the bribery.
The Kennard Novelty Company faces great success here on after, right? And Kennard and Bond eventually end up cashing out early. And this leaves behind Cole Washington Bowie and William and Isaac Fuld. So by this time, William Fuld, who got in as an employee and a stockholder, is running the business. And with the blessing of Cole Bowie, is able to get exclusive rights to manufacture the board and make millions. But here's the tea, because there is tea.
Oh my god, there's tea.
Yes.
Is it piping hot?
You can judge after you listen to this. His brother, right, Isaac, he gets cut out of the business. And obviously, William goes on to make millions.
Ooh.
Right? So naturally, Isaac Fuld is very, very disgruntled. He is so mad that he has his baby daughter exhumed from the family gravesite during a cemetery renovation.
What?
Yeah.
You exhumed a baby.
Yeah.
That is beyond petty. That is just evil.
Look, he was that mad. He was truly that angry. And the two sides of the family would go on to not speak to each other for almost a whole century. We're talking like 96 years.
How?
Look,
like those kids
so many generations passed that there were family members living in the same area that never spoke to each other and didn't even know the other one was in the area.
Like, those kids were raised to hate the rest of the family. Jesus.
Or, just not know about the other side entirely.
Fuck up.
Yeah.
You exhumed a baby.
Yeah. So
like that is how we get demon babies.
That is how
demon babies are made. I just found the origin story of demon babies.
Yeah, so how was that tea, Yadira? Was it cold like revenge?
It was scalding. That was scalding. That's not even revenge at that point. That feels like a crime. That feels illegal.
Well, technically, that was Isaac's baby daughter. He's allowed to do what he wants with his daughter's body.
That just came out wrong. Continue.
Yeah, that did come out wrong. That's not what I meant. Anyway, before this goes worse.
Phrasing.
Yes, I know.
Like, the word corpse probably would have worked.
I know. I'm sorry. I didn't think that one through.
Clearly you didn't, and neither did he.
So it's not just Isaac that William Fuld ended up pissing off. You see, other businessmen actually tried to compete with the Kennard Novelty Company, and they would come out with their own version of the talking board, but they would all fail. So naturally, they were salty. There ended up being a whole public fight across the pages of the Baltimore Sun about who invented the Ouija board in the first place because of that. This was before Twitter, so this is the most equivalent that we'll get during this time to a Twitter fight.
I can think of an earlier Twitter fight.
I'm sure you can, but I can't at the moment.
Way to fight over your fake ghost board. Good job, guys. This is your legacy.
Okay, so let's fast forward. Eventually, in 1919, Cole Bowie gives the rest of the business to William Fuld to the pretty tune of, drumroll please, $1.
Oh.
The things you could buy with $1.
Damn, born in the wrong time. I could have bought a whole ass company for $1.
Maybe.
Didn't know they were going for that cheap.
William Fuld would continue running the company until he died eventually in 1927. So think about it. 1919 to 1927, that's like 8 years, roughly. If the maths, let me know. Anyway, the thing is, the circumstances of his death, people say are kind of spooky.
A spooky death.
Yes. So it's said that William Fuld actually spoke to the Ouija board about where to open up his next factory. And the Ouija board responded with Harford Avenue in Baltimore.
I feel like this is a setup by the ghosts.
Yeah, so...
You never tell someone to open a business in Baltimore.
Yeah, so anyway, William Fuld does this, right? He picks a site in Harford Avenue, Baltimore, and he has to go there to inspect the building. And he decides that he's going to go onto the roof to oversee the installation of a flag. But while he's on the roof, the iron railing that I guess he was against, I don't know exact details, the iron railing gives away and Fuld falls. So many people actually believe that the Ouija board led him to his death.
Well, I don't believe that for 1 second.
Oh, do you now?
I really don't.
Anyway, before he died, he made his family promise not to give away the business. However, his family did about 40 years later to the Parker brothers, known as Hasbro today. And basically, that's the story of the Ouija board company-wise. Now, let's get into how it works. Fun fact, when the company got its patent, the patent didn't say how the board worked, just that it did. And William, the investors, none of them said anything about it. And the more they kept their mouths shut, the more mysterious it was and the more successful their business was, right?
Right.
There is actual science behind why the Ouija board works. Do you think you know what it is?
I'm going to say ghost kisses.
Okay, so that's her hypothesis. You guys let me know what you think. There is this thing called the ideomotor effect, also known as the ideomotor response. And what it is a psychological phenomenon where we make automatic movements unconsciously. For example, when we blink or when we breathe, that's all unconscious.
Ah, so you're telling me this is all fake and...
I mean, you can take this how you want. You can choose to believe this or not. I'm just telling you what I learned.
People are gullible. That's what I've learned.
So this effect was first observed by physician and physiologist William Benjamin Carpenter, who published it in his report to the Royal Institution of Great Britain. Things like dowsing rods and especially bomb detecting kits actually work off the ideomotor effect. And of course, the Ouija board works off this effect too. So everyone using the Ouija board will swear that they're not moving the planchette.
But they're moving the planchette.
Well, they're... technically, their conscious mind
Has
is
anybody ever tried using the Ouija board without touching the planchette? Because, if the ghost is moving it, shouldn't the ghost... isn't it rude to hold the steering wheel while someone is driving?
I don't know. I think the logic is that, the ghost is somehow, manipulating your body.
Wait, why are people playing a game that literally puts you in possession territory? What are you people doing? Stop it! That sounds dangerous. You guys, if Invasion of the Body Snatchers happened, we deserved it. We deserve it. If Invasion of Body Snatchers happens, because this shit right here is nonsense. Sorry.
So technically, they're not wrong in that their conscious mind is not processing that they're actually moving it, because the thing is, your conscious mind can't comprehend that that's what's happening, right? You don't think about breathing, you don't think about blinking, and you just do it
until someone tells you.
Yeah, but when you do think about breathing, you might stop breathing.
Yeah.
So yeah, so basically no one realizes that they're moving the planchette, and there's not a single person in particular who is actually moving the planchette. It's a combined effect, and that's what makes the whole thing so spooky.
So my suggestion, if you want to prove that the Ouija board actually works, take your hands off of it, everybody, and just ask questions and see what happens.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, there is technically a link between the unknown and unknown. Hey, this is Christina with a bit of an editor's note. I had misspoken. I said unknown and unknown, but what I really meant was the known and unknown. Thanks. Back to your usual programming. And psychologists believe this to be true. It's just not in the way that...
Wait, the unknown and unknown?
Well, yeah, you're conscious and unconscious.
Oh.
There is a link between that. After all, it's all your brain.
It's all in my head.
Yeah. And that's... Yeah, so basically, there is a link, just not in the way that you might think there is a link. Okay?
A link in time.
Anyway, so let me bring some more clarity to this. So in 2012, there was this group of scientists and researchers at the University of British Columbia who wanted to see if the Ouija board could provide some insight into how the mind processes information on different levels. And they knew that the Ouija board operates on the ideomotor response and wanted to see whether the response could express the unconscious knowledge of who uses it. And so they did a couple of experiments. Okay.
Was one of those seeing what would happen if they didn't have their hands on the planchette?
Kind of, sort of.
Ooh.
Not really.
Aww.
Okay. You'll see what I mean. So, first experiment, they set up participants with a Ouija board, and they tell them that you're going to be playing with another person in a different room via teleconference. Okay? And they set up a robot that they told these participants would mimic the movements of the other person that they're playing with.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, everybody thought they were playing with somebody, but in fact, there was actually no other person. The robot was actually just exaggerating the movements of the one person that was actually playing. Yeah. So during this experiment, participants were asked a series of yes/no fact-based questions, right?
Right. To see if the ghosts are smart.
Yeah, like, things like, is Buenos Aires the capital of Brazil? Something like that. Anyway, participants were asked to verbally answer the questions to the best of their ability and also answer via the Ouija board.
Right.
Intrigued by the findings of this first experiment, researchers conducted a second experiment. And this time there was no robot. There was an actual person that was in on the experiment that was playing the Ouija board this time, and I'm going to call them the imposter.
That's kind of sus.
I know, right? So, participants were blindfolded, and as they were playing, the imposter would quietly take their hands off the planchette. So, all the participants were actually still playing on their own. And they were once again asked a series of fact-based questions and asked to answer both verbally to the best of their ability and then, of course, through the Ouija board. And guess what? The results of both experiments were the exact same. Like, really the exact same.
Amazing.
Yeah, so when participants were asked to answer questions verbally, they'd only answer correctly about 50% of the time. But using the Ouija board, they'd answer correctly 65% of the time. So basically, we actually know more information than we realize.
Wow.
Yeah, so maybe you're unconsciously good at math. You just need a Ouija board and that you use to answer math tests.
So I guess now the SATs are going to have to ban Ouija boards.
As I said, over these last 133 years, the Ouija board has stayed relevant. In fact, during hard times, the Ouija board would see increases in sales.
So you're telling me we're about to see a skyrocket in Ouija board sales?
We probably already have.
Oh my god, I have to check this out now.
Yeah, we're talking about, sales would increase during time like the Great Depression, Prohibition, the Vietnam War, race riots. I remember seeing some number, apparently during the Great Depression, they sold 20 million boards.
What the fuck?
Yeah, double check that for me, guys. But I remember reading some sort of number like that. I'll also link the article down below. So if I'm wrong, so be it. So obviously, with that pesky little bug that was going around in 2019, there was probably an increase in sales. And I know for a fact that we didn't buy one. Neither of us bought one. But what about you guys? Did you buy one? Did you use it? Reach out to us if you did, especially if you had weird stuff start happening during your session or even afterwards. We'd love to hear your stories.
Oh my god.
I want to hear them stories. I don't know about you, but I want to hear them.
Ask the ghosts if they've seen any good movies lately. If any of them say Rise of Skywalker, I know y'all are fibbing.
It was basically hard times that were boosting sales. And as it turns out, that's part of the reason the Ouija board stayed so relevant and became a staple is because of American media, as I mentioned before.
America.
No.
Continue.
We mentioned movies, but they appeared in more than just movies. The Ouija board was making frequent appearances in newspapers and TV shows, and people were using Ouija boards for all sorts of things over the years. Let's list off some of the things I found that people were using the Ouija board to do, or, the Ouija board told them to do it. 1921, in Chicago, a woman was sent to a psychiatric facility because she said a Ouija board told her to leave her mom's corpse in the living room for 15 days before burying the body in the backyard.
What?
No, that happened.
What?
Yeah, crazy stuff, right? 1920s.
Just America in any time period seems to go off the wall. It's insane.
Yeah. So 1930, two women actually killed another woman because the Ouija board told them to do it. And this happened in Buffalo, New York.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 1941, a young 23-year-old man joined the army because a Ouija board told him to.
Wait, did you know about Buffalo, New York before this episode or after?
I knew about it before because my parents took us on road trips, and that was one of the cities we had to pass through.
You've never heard of Rochester, New York?
Stop making fun of me.
It's just... It's been mentioned in so many horror movies.
Has it?
Yes.
It went over my head.
I'm sorry.
Anyway.
We're going to have to make a trip to Rochester. She might not know it's real.
It's an SCP for all I care. Okay.
Continue. What did that 23-year-old do to the Ouija board?
He didn't do anything with the Ouija board. Okay, so the Ouija board just told him to join the army. This was 1941, so we're talking World War.
I'm pretty sure that was just his subconscious telling him to join the army.
I don't know. So 1958, a Connecticut court ruled not to honor the will of Mrs. Helen Dopek, who left only $1,000 to two former servants and a whopping $152,000 to Mr. John Gale, a spirit who contacted her through the Ouija board.
What the fuck was the ghost gonna do with the fucking money?
Look, this last one to me is she basically got scammed by a ghost. If there was a ghost.
This sounds like this sounds like a plot from DC Comics. There's a character called Gentleman Ghost. This sounds like something he would do.
I could see it.
What's going on?
I don't know.
What is going on in the Ouija board fandom?
I'm not sure, but people also attributed literature to Ouija boards. Okay, so in 1916, Mrs. Pearl...
The Ouija board wrote an erotic novel.
I'm sure it did.
No!
In 1916, there was this woman named Mrs. Pearl Curran who wrote poems that she said were spoken to her by 17th century Englishwoman Patience Worth via Ouija board. And she was actually really successful. So her friend, Emily Hutchings, I guess, jumped on the bandwagon for clout.
Well, when you slap a ghost wrote it on the book.
Yeah, a real ghostwriter.
Sorry, I have to laugh.
For once, I have dad jokes.
I'm sorry, it's not coming out. Continue.
Emily Hutchings jumps on this bandwagon, probably for clout, and says that Samuel Clemens, aka Mark Twain, told her, spoke her book into existence through the Ouija board. And of course, we have James Merrill, who wrote The Changing Light of Sandover, which he said that the Ouija board communicated to him. But to give him credit, he actually publicly said that the Ouija board was more of a sounding board for his own thoughts. But then again, he also claimed that he got in contact with W.B. Yeats, his friend Maya Deren, and the Archangel Michael. So...
Okay, that is a list of people.
Right?
I don't know who W.B. Yeats is, but like...
But the Archangel Michael, though?
Like, you spoke to the Archangel Michael? Like, the Michael who is an Archangel Michael?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
We're talking A-list here.
Oh shit. That's S tier. That is S tier. That's H tier. Heaven tier.
Yeah.
Oh god, please.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
You are trying to take this seriously, and here I am.
No, I was never trying to take this seriously. Okay, I knew the episode would turn out like this. I was hoping it would turn out like this, and I'm so glad it's going this way.
Continue.
Clearly, the Ouija board wasn't all that bad, and people were using it for all sorts of things. And it didn't really. And part of the reason is because it didn't interfere with the Christian dogma. As you know, America was very, very Christian at one point. Like,
why was I told this was against Christianity?
People were playing with the Ouija board and going to church, like, you know, the next day or, you know, even the same day. I don't know, but. Yeah, they presented zero interpersonal turmoil. And like people of all ages, professions, and education levels were buying the boards, whether they believed in spirits or not. It was just like, you know, family fun.
Family fun. Hey kids, you want to talk to your dead grandma? Jesus fucking Christ.
So In fact, according to Robert Murch, the Ouija historian, people who actually disliked the Ouija board the most were spirit mediums themselves, because the Ouija board took away their jobs.
So you're saying they took our jobs?
Yeah.
God damn it.
So you're probably wondering, Yadira, what changed?
Am I?
I mean, I think...
Just continue, keep talking.
Why do we suddenly think today that the Ouija board has some sort of demonic energy, some sort of evil force associated with it?
Hollywood.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I got that one right.
Yeah, Hollywood is why we find it so scary. Everything changed when the Fire Nation, aka Hollywood, attacked.
There's a joke in there that I want to make, but I'm not going to make it. But go on.
What happened was The Exorcist came out in 1973.
A masterclass of horror, by the way.
Yeah, this movie was so scary to people that people could no longer look at the Ouija board the same.
People also fainted in theaters, by the way. That actually happened. Ambulances were called during the screening.
It was so epic.
It's an amazing... It holds up. It genuinely holds up, in my opinion.
So ever since The Exorcist, the Ouija board has continued to make appearances in scary movies. Christianity ended up denouncing the Ouija board as a tool of the devil after this movie.
Fucking hypocrites.
Yeah, people were burning Ouija boards along with Harry Potter books during the Satanic Panic as a result of all of this.
Wait, when did Harry Potter come out?
I'm not entirely sure.
The Satanic Panic definitely happened before Harry Potter.
Well, the Satanic Panic was basically like a time period in general. This was still in it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
God damn, I never... Jesus.
Despite the reputation of the Ouija board, people continue to still play it today. And with the age of the internet and social media, we continue to hear stories of people's scary experiences with the Ouija board. Now, I have a question for everybody. What do you think? We know the science behind the Ouija board now, right? And we know that unconsciously we know more than we realize. But is that really all? If spirits and ghosts exist, if there is an afterlife, whatever you want to call it, is the unconscious mind responding to these spirits when we use the Ouija board? Because remember, this is all unconscious. Are we being body snatched? Are we in tune with more than we realize? And what about all those stories that we hear about the Ouija board? Let us know.
And also give us your best bastardized spelling of the word Ouija board. Let's see your Luigi boards.
Yes. Like I said, if you have your own story, let us know. We want to hear it. We have Twitter and Instagram. Our DMs and YouTube comments are open. Yeah, you could also even email us. Point is, we want to hear it.
And I will try not to laugh.
And if you like this episode, remember to subscribe, and share. Also remember to leave a rating and comment. And also maybe try to convince Yadira if you truly believe that spirits exist. I think that would be fun. Try to convince Yadira that
something like the Ouija board is legitimate.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you for joining us, and we shall see you next time. Bye.
Bye.